criticize your former employer, it's taboo to do that. But to criticize an employer that also owns extremely lethal technologies and surveillance technologies that are highly invasive and used in war zones is something else entirely.
It's 2025. We're all kind of used to government surveillance. The idea that we're all being watched all the time and don't own our own personal data has become normalized. We're also used to the military spending vast amounts of our money on just a few giant defense contractors. But one tech company wants to change both of those things
and become the ultimate military contractor and the ultimate arbiter of all of our data.
Palantir is here to disrupt and make the institutions we partner with the very best in the world, and when it's necessary, to scare enemies and on occasion kill them.
Check out Palantir shares surging 22% after the company cited a boom in demand for its AI software from the U.S. government.
We're doing it. We're doing it. And I'm sure you're enjoying this as much as I am.
Palantir, a tech company based here in Denver, claims they can revolutionize government systems with their data analysis software, newly powered by artificial intelligence.
They've been hired by the Department of Defense, the FBI, local police departments, and even the IRS and Wendy's to take in the information those organizations collect even more information, and use that data to draw conclusions.
It can be used to completely reconfigure organizations' ontology, its reality, what systems matter, what information matters, what processes matter, how they are structured, what biases are introduced at each of those stages.
We talked to a former Palantir employee, dug into decades of research, and listened to hours of Alex Karp's own words to unwrap the layers of Palantir's carefully cultivated sales pitch, how they capitalize on fear, uncertainty, and unrest.
I don't think in win-lose. I think in domination. This is a company built for bad times. Bad times mean strong finances internally. Bad times are very good for Palantir because we built products that are robust, that are built for danger.
Let's rewind a little.
Palantir's story starts with one of the most effective things a company can have for sales: fear.
After the September 11th attacks, the United States government began expanding surveillance both at home and abroad. This was, of course, a boon for the defense industry at large. Simultaneously, the Silicon Valley tech industry was growing fast and making people in a once obscure industry very, very rich, very, very quickly. Like the founders and executives at PayPal, known as the PayPal Mafia. Elon Musk, Reid Hoffman, the LinkedIn guy, and Peter Thiel. When PayPal was sold, Thiel had millions of dollars burning a hole in his pocket and an idea. PayPal had developed systems for detecting fraud and crimes in the platform. What if they could use similar thinking to analyze the world at large? So Thiel pulled from his network to build out a new company. One of the first hires was Thiel's Stanford Law School roommate, Alex Karp, who'd gone on after Stanford to get a PhD in not business or computer science or engineering, but neoclassical social theory. They named the company Palantir, after the Palantiri from J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
In Lord of the Rings, a Palantir stone is a magical object that allows its users to predict the future or to see what's going on in a remote location.
It was originally created by the elves. It was meant to be used for good purposes. It is potentially a very dangerous technology. It's very powerful.
Long have you hunted me.
So that's Middle-earth, but what does Palantir do in regular Earth?
And what we do is we use what legal scholars call predicate-based search. So we would look at you, and then we would go out and say, oh, there's lots of different things in your life that may be indicative of someone involved in bad behavior.
Put simpler, they make software that makes it easier for their customers to collect and analyze data, and then act on that analysis with and without AI. By 2013, 10 years after their founding, Palantir's client list included the FBI, the CIA, the NSA, the Marines, the Air Force, Special Operations Command, and more.
Did your company help to track and kill Osama bin Laden?
You know, we can never, I'll tell you, the closest thing to an answer is when you look at when you open the paper and look in the news about these kind of things, there's a 2/3 chance, depending on the country involved, that somehow my company was involved.
Fundamentally, the mission that is pushed to employees is that we're solving the world's hardest problems and supporting Western institutions. That is the main driver of sort of this militaristic culture that is developed inside of Palantir.
If you do not feel comfortable supporting the legitimate efforts of America and its allies in the context of war, don't join Palantir.
This entire message of like, we are the most lethal, we are the most able to surveil and process large amounts of data.
You have created the system which you call kill chain.
Privately. Publicly, the lawyers have some innocuous
So
something
how
like
does
tech for the amelioration of unwanted blah blah blah. Some term we're supposed to
Okay,
use.
let's
Yeah, for me it's the kill chain.
kill chain sounds good.
Kill chain isn't an original term created by Palantir. It's the more general military verbiage for the series of decisions leading from identifying a target to taking their life. Palantir's contract added their software and artificial intelligence to the kill chain.
It's quicker and better and safer and more violent.
It's tech that Juan helped market.
It reduces the distance you have to the problem, but when you're able to take a step back and really see all the narratives and how they were shaped and the actual application of these technologies, your whole world starts falling apart, which is something that, you know, definitely happened to me.
Juan didn't leave Palantir entirely for ethical reasons. He just got another job. But the reason he eventually started speaking out against Palantir came after watching the Israeli invasion of Gaza following the October 7th attacks. Palantir has contracts with the Israeli Defense Forces. The exact nature of the contracts is opaque, intentionally, but there is evidence to suggest that Palantir's artificial intelligence tech was used for selecting targets in Gaza. CARP doesn't mind the controversy. In fact, it's part of the marketing.
Palantir will even pick up the projects that other companies rejected for political reasons.
We're very comfortable being unpopular.
CARP doesn't think controversy will lose Palantir customers.
Whatever is pissing them off, they're still buying the product.
Wendy's hired Palantir to help with their supply chain. Palantir works with health insurance companies to build AI for denials management to protect revenue.
Do you want Palantir's AI making decisions about what care is covered for you and your loved ones?
They also do business with for-profit hospitals, major investment banks, and even other defense contractors. In 2024, Palantir brought in nearly $2.9 billion in revenue, 55% of which came from government sources, with the vast majority being American. So let's look at their pitch to the American government. Last year, Palantir CTO Shyam Sankar put out a presentation and white paper called The Defense Reformation. He cites The Last Supper, which was a secretive 1993 meeting between defense industry executives and the Deputy Secretary of Defense. Over a dozen companies walked in, and only a few walked out. That dinner is often cited as the origin of our consolidated military-industrial complex.
And to me, I think this was the definitive moment that kicked off the financialization of defense. From that point forward, it became all about buybacks and dividends and leverage ratios.
Criticizing the financialization of the defense industry, calling out stock buybacks, that doesn't sound like a defense executive. That sounds more like the exact argument about the defense industry that we have made before.
I think what's interesting to me about Palantir is how they co-opt the language of revolution.
But Sankar's argument did work on somebody. Uncle Sam. The Defense Innovation Board, an advisory group within the Department of Defense, cited Sankar's presentation multiple times in their 2024 report on why the DoD needs to divert more of their budget to emerging technology. That's giving money to Palantir. There's a reason Palantir just replaced Ford Motors in the S&P 100 in the months after Trump was elected. The Trump administration is an ideal customer for what Palantir is selling. First, there are many former Palantir employees sprinkled across the Trump administration, from inside Doge to foreign policy advisors to high-level technology appointees. And Palantir co-founder Peter Thiel, heavily invested in the company, is also heavily invested in President Trump and Vice President Vance. He was a major campaign donor to both. Then the stated goal of Doge is to streamline and combine government data, which is exactly what Palantir does.
The ways that the government is defrauded is that the computer systems don't talk to each other.
And obviously, Karp is loving it.
Disruption, in the end of the day, exposes things that aren't working. There'll be ups and downs. There's a revolution. Some people can get their heads cut off. Like, you know, it's like we're expecting to see really unexpected things and to win.
And what is winning, according to Palantir? This is CTO Shyam Sankar in 2021.
Turning to government, we continue to advance our mission of becoming the U.S. government's central operating system as we extend our footprint across defense, healthcare, and civilian agencies.
The government's operating system. They want everything to funnel through Palantir. Palantir already has contracts with the IRS, going through taxpayer data to save auditors time by finding the easiest audits to pursue. Now, Wired reports, Doge will likely hire Palantir to create unified software for the entire IRS, a mega API that would allow anyone with access to view and possibly alter all IRS data in one place. That's all of your financial information. And they have multiple contracts with the Department of Health and Human Services, including nearly $100 million to support HHS's core administrative data and applications, to manage, ingest, and access data securely across business domains. HHS's core responsibility is Medicare and Medicaid. That's control over millions of Americans' health records and their access to health care. So what does it mean for one contractor to have all that power, data, and taxpayer money as profit, especially as AI gets involved?
As we kind of increasingly live in a simulated world, we lose touch with reality and the human decisions that matter, and we move closer towards governance by algorithm. Not only made by decisions of automated artificial intelligence systems, which is a problem, but more importantly, subject to decisions made by the people who are influencing these AI systems and creating them in order to fulfill an agenda for whatever their profit-seeking or control-seeking objectives are. And when I see Doge kind of going into every agency and the human decisions that matter, and we move closer towards governance by algorithm, not only made by decisions of automated artificial intelligence systems, which is a problem, but more importantly, subject to decisions made by the people who are influencing these AI systems and creating them in order to fulfill an agenda for whatever their profit-seeking or control-seeking objectives are. And when I see Doge kind of going into every agency and addressing the IT department first, I see it as an opportunity to try to change reality itself.
But so what? Why am I telling you all of this? Palantir has no problem being seen as Big Brother, as all-powerful, as lethal even.
We're at the brink of using these technologies potentially to run our government, to run our battlefields, and our personal lives. Using artificial intelligence as a sort of panacea solution across our federal departments, and especially when they're, again, wielded by people with a very distinct agenda, puts everyone at risk.
It almost feels like that's been the plan all along. Here's co-founder Peter Thiel in 2010 at Libertopia, a libertarian conference, speaking about tech companies and government.
The basic idea was that we could never win an election on getting certain things because we were in such a small minority. But maybe you could actually unilaterally change the world without having to constantly convince people and beg people and plead with people who are never going to agree with you through technological means. And this is where I think technology is this incredible alternative to politics.
And here's Alex Karp in 2009 on civil liberties with regards to Palantir's work.
The central question, in my view, of civil liberties is how, it's not if the government has data, because let's assume the government has as much data as a health insurance company. It's how is that data being used? Is it being used in a way that's lawful? Meaning, do they have the right to use it? And is it being migrated into places it's not allowed to be used? We allow the enforcement of rules that the government ought to enforce. And by the way, my experience is they want to enforce, or at very least know they need to enforce. And if it's framed in that way, then you can have what is the ultimate Silicon Valley solution.
One co-founder openly wants to use the power of the tech industry to affect politics. The other wants his company to have oversight over how the government data they're paid to handle is used. And the founders of Palantir will retain control in the company no matter what, through an obscure ownership structure. Their Class F shares grant them 49.99% of voting power, even if they collectively own as little as 6% of the company.
At the start of this journey, I was extremely afraid for the repercussions of this writing, of speaking out, but now I'm like, you know, even more convinced that this is absolutely necessary.
We can't replace our current broken system with an even more broken one. And we can't let the worst people in Silicon Valley become our government.
It's not about whether you're actually at risk for speaking out or not. It's just the idea that somebody's watching you is enough to push people into silence.
Thank you so much for watching. If you want to support more nonprofit reporting into corporate greed, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let us know in the comments what you'd like to see us cover next.
I think we're at the dawn of a new era. I think it's going to be very exciting.
We are at T-minus under 33 minutes and counting.
I'd love to have SpaceX be the company that brings humanity to Mars. And I hope I see it while I'm still alive.
I mean, are we going to Mars or not? Right now, we sure are messing a lot of stuff up in our area here.
Brownsville, Texas sits at the southernmost tip of the United States. It's a border town of 200,000 people. 10 years ago, it was upended by the arrival of a very famous new resident, the richest man in the world. Many residents are glad that this $350 billion company moved into a town that has struggled with high unemployment for decades.
We need this area to grow. It's the poorest county in the nation. If we don't grow, we're gonna die.
Come here, Elon! Did you see his rocket yesterday?
President Trump has promised to support Musk's vision for interplanetary travel.
We will pursue our manifest destiny into the stars, launching American astronauts to plant the stars and stripes on the planet Mars.
This is what victory feels like. Yeah!
But what's actually happening in Brownsville, where Elon Musk has already staked his company's flag?
We're a disadvantaged community that's being exploited by a billionaire for his experimental space fantasy.
We used to go a lot. I mean, before I even married, we would go, and he would go with his family also. And then once we married, we had boys. We were there probably every weekend.
It was just a very serene place. I mean, it's still beautiful when you can get there.
Renee and Ida Mandrano live just 17 miles from Boca Chica Beach, where SpaceX launches the rocket Starship, the largest and most powerful rocket ever built, and the one that Elon Musk says will take humanity to Mars. The Starship, which includes the booster Super Heavy, is a 5,000-ton rocket made of stainless steel designed to carry up to 150 metric tons of cargo, which Musk says is necessary for his Mars colony.
The launch is here. The rocket is right here, and you can hear it, you can feel it, you can see the fire, you can see the raptors, and you see the smoke, and then all of a sudden you hear those booms. Our dog Miller was running around. It was loud. It sounded like
a bomb?
Huge, dangerous, super explosive bomb.
What was once 1,400 acres of beach and wetlands is now home to SpaceX's building facility, launch pad, and a continuously growing town where employees live, called Starbase. The rocket launches 5 times a year, but right now SpaceX is applying to launch 25 times a year.
It's a shame that it got to this point, as big as it is, and probably gonna get bigger.
Musk came to Texas to pitch his private space launching facility in 2013.
This would be the first commercial orbital launch site in the world.
And warned that the company was also eyeing Georgia, Florida, and Puerto Rico.
We are looking at other potential launch locations.
The year before, Musk had spent $12,000 in campaign contributions and hired a lobbyist to court local politicians. SpaceX spent a total of $219,000 on gifts, trips to SpaceX headquarters in California, and even a Lakers game. Texas is a billionaire-friendly state. They have no corporate tax or state income tax. But SpaceX wanted more, and Governor Rick Perry and the state officials were eating. Texas is a billionaire-friendly state. They have no corporate launching facility in 2013.
This would be the first commercial orbital launch site in the world.
And warned that the company was also eyeing Georgia, Florida, and Puerto Rico.
We are looking at other potential launch locations.
The year before, Musk had spent $12,000 in campaign contributions and hired a lobbyist to court local politicians. SpaceX spent a total of $219,000 on gifts, trips to SpaceX headquarters in California, and even a Lakers game. Texas is a billionaire-friendly state. They have no corporate tax or state income tax. But SpaceX wanted more, and Governor Rick Perry and the state officials were eager to win this bid. In exchange, Musk promised millions in growth.
Our competition for this in Texas is very serious.
When we first met with Elon, he explained the project to us. And then he asked us, do you know why I'm doing this? And he kind of, backs away from the table and looks at us and says, humanity can no longer sustain itself on this planet. humanity can no longer sustain itself on this planet. So I'm gonna help with that by colonizing Mars. So at that moment in time, number one, I thought, I'm fired. How am I gonna go back to the poorest community in the United States and tell my leadership, hey, let's use our hard-earned tax dollars to incentivize and recruit a company to our community. And the reason that they're doing this is because they're gonna save humanity by colonizing Mars. It was just so out there.
Gilberto Salinas co-founded the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, an organization that allocates city taxes to attract businesses.
People laughed at us, but we're like, if we're able to align everything, it might be just that deal of the century.
Salinas' organization chipped in $5 million in incentives, and the state approved an additional $15 million, as well as a 10-year waiver on county taxes. 10 years later, in 2024, SpaceX released a report claiming they had invested $3.5 billion in infrastructure and created 3,400 new jobs. To Salinas, Musk had kept his promise.
I think any business person will say, you invest $5 million and 10 years down the road, those $5 million are going to turn into $3+ billion. Yeah, I would do that deal any day.
In 2014, SpaceX broke ground.
The future of South Texas takes off right behind me. This was the frontier at one time, and it's the frontier again.
Musk is really good at getting government subsidies. In the last few decades, he's gotten hundreds of billions of dollars from federal grants, tax incentives, and state contracts for his companies Tesla and SolarCity. SpaceX was near bankruptcy, and Musk was deep in debt when NASA gave the company a massive handout in 2008.
NASA called and told us that we'd won a $1.5 billion contract. And I couldn't even hold the phone. It's like, I just blurted out, I love you guys.
They saved you.
Yeah, they did.
Financially and maybe even emotionally.
I'll tell you what, that was definitely helpful. Yeah.
But do those subsidies really pay off for towns like Brownsville?
We are a low-income community. We're primarily brown and indigenous. We have a very unique and beautiful community.
Becca Hanosa is a local environmentalist and activist who has been fighting SpaceX for years.
Our people here, we do need jobs. Most of us are in survival mode, and we're in survival mode because we've been exploited so many times by so many different industries, and now SpaceX is part of that.
Musk has a reputation for forcing high speeds on his workers and lax safety standards at his work sites. Reuters reported in 2023 that there had been 600 injuries at SpaceX locations since 2014. One worker has been in a coma after an on-site accident for 3 years. Another lost vision in one of his eyes after being struck while moving a beam.
Ya no miré yo nada completamente, entonces yo le gritaba a mi amigo, perdí mi ojo, perdí mi ojo.
Musk's work site in Boca Chica has an accident rate 6 times higher than anywhere in the space industry.
Lo que yo miré, he visto yo allí en ese trabajo de especie, no hay suficiente seguridad. Ahí no hay.
Besides the $5 million Brownsville gifted to SpaceX when they first arrived, the Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation has since spent another $1 million to attract space-related startups. Hanosa says it reminds her of a different time in South Texas's past. About 100 years ago, when rich landowners and politicians in the lower Rio Grande Valley tried to lure white settlers to the region to farm. The lower valley was majority Tejano, Mexican Americans who had lived there before Texas was even a state, and it still is today.
They advertised our low-income people as cheap workforce and cheap land. Come here and exploit.
Since Musk's arrival, the launching site and the SpaceX campus have grown much faster than Hanosa and the Medranos ever imagined.
Never did we think that they would be taking over the entire area. It was just Elon Musk is gonna come in, he's gonna build a little pad, he's gonna have a launch, and that's it. But now it's totally different than what was explained.
The thing that bothers the Medranos the most is that they can rarely go to Boca Chica Beach, a beach the state of Texas and the city of Brownsville promised the public would be able to visit. The Texas state constitution guarantees access to all public beaches, but in 2013, the state amended the Texas Open Beaches Act to carve out space activity. Now the state is free to close the beach anytime SpaceX wants to launch a rocket. And it turns out that's a lot.
They'll send a text and they'll say Boca Chica Beach is now closed. And if we're planning to go out there, that's it. Unpack everything. And then 8, 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, I'll get another text. Boca Chica Beach is now open. Well, who's gonna go out there at 10 o'clock at night?
You're on their time, you know, you're on SpaceX time.
Local people call Boca Chica Beach the poor people's beach because this is where people come to fish. We come to the beach with our families because it was free and open to the public. And SpaceX is changing all of that rapidly.
Boca Chica Beach is not only a popular spot for fishing and swimming, it's also a complex ecosystem, one of the most biologically diverse in North America. and home to endangered and protected species, including the ocelot, sea turtles, and the piping plover.
SpaceX is trampling over this entire site, singeing the wildlife, burning down part of the wildlife refuge. This region, most of the native habitat has been destroyed because of real estate development, industrialization, farming. We only have 3% left, and that 3% is being destroyed by SpaceX.
Hinosa co-founded the Texas Environmental Justice Center, and along with other national and local environmental organizations, is suing the FAA and SpaceX for violation of the National Environmental Policy Act, or NEPA. In order to build on the site, Musk had to do a thorough environmental impact statement, or EIS, under the National Environmental Protection Act. These reports are really comprehensive. They include impacts to air quality, carbon emissions, water usage, wildlife protection, as well as cultural and economic impacts. Initially, SpaceX got approval to launch the Falcon 9, a reliable and, after years of testing, safe rocket that takes cargo into lower orbit. But in 2018, SpaceX announced they would be launching the Starship Super Heavy, a rocket 20% larger than the Falcon 9 with 10 times the thrust. In a press conference, Musk said they would be testing their new rocket in Texas instead of the Kennedy Center in Florida because
it's got a lot of land with nobody around, and so if it blows up, it's cool. If it blows up, it's cool.
This is a perfect example of a time the FAA should have conducted a second EIS, but instead did a simplified environmental assessment, or EA. Officials concluded that there would be no significant impact of launching this much larger rocket from Boca Chica Beach. That same year, before a single rocket took flight, SpaceX started a fire during an engine test that engulfed 68 acres of brushland in flames and burned through the night. In spite of this, the first launch of Starship was scheduled for April 20th, 2023, aka Weed Day. Here's how the launch was supposed to go. Starship was meant to orbit the Earth, with the booster landing in the Gulf of Mexico and the spaceship re-entering the atmosphere and landing in the Pacific Ocean. Instead, the launch pad exploded, sending debris across Boca Chica Beach and scorching more than 3 acres of land. A dust cloud poured over the near was scheduled for April 20th, 2023, aka Weed Day. Here's how the launch was supposed to go. Starship was meant to orbit the Earth, with the booster landing in the Gulf of Mexico and the spaceship re-entering the atmosphere and landing in the Pacific Ocean. Instead, the launch pad exploded, sending debris across Boca Chica Beach and scorching more than 3 acres of land. A dust cloud poured over the nearby Port Isabel, Buildings shook, a window shattered.
Holy crap! Rocket is launching. See it on the ladder. It's like a soot. Big old layer cake of it. And they're trying to tell us it's sand.
SpaceX hadn't installed flame diverters or a simple and very necessary water deluge system, sending shards of concrete and rebar all across the beach. The spaceship also failed to separate from the booster.
The entire Starship stack continuing to rotate. We should have had separation by now.
And spiraled in orbit before exploding and landing to the Gulf of Mexico. Elon looked disappointed, but SpaceX assured viewers it was a success.
You never know exactly what's gonna happen, but as we promised, excitement is guaranteed.
What Elon Musk and what SpaceX tells people is that we're so efficient, we have to develop our rockets by just testing them in the real world. We're not going to use as many computer models to make sure that everything's perfect. And if it blows up, then we're going to get even more data. It's actually good if it blows up.
Eric Roche is an environmental engineer who writes about SpaceX at his blog ESG Hound.
Those failures have externalities. Every time you launch a rocket, there's a sound wave, there's pollution, you are disrupting people's way of life.
Roche documented the damage after that first launch. Burned nests and eggs, dust and chunks of concrete, and scraps of metal on the beach.
NASA launches mostly from Kennedy Space Center, which is thousands of acres that was allocated by Congress. And so it has a buffer built in. Whereas SpaceX's launch site in Boca Chica is a tiny little spot of land, and it's surrounded by land that they don't own. It's very close to populated areas. And so those externalities are going to be magnified just by orders of magnitude.
The Kennedy Space Center was built using eminent domain, approved by Congress in 1964. But Musk hasn't gone through that same process. He's just slowly expanding the scale and scope of his operation. Roche says it's eminent domain by fiat.
I have never experienced an earthquake until SpaceX. The earthquakes that I experienced in my apartment, which is over 20 miles away, is an earthquake caused by a billionaire.
Before Musk could launch again, the FAA grounded the Starship and launched an investigation conducted by SpaceX but overseen by the FAA. They found 63 things that needed to be changed before the Starship could launch again. Musk and his fans goaded officials on Twitter, which Musk owns and has renamed X.com. The investigation closed in September, and the second launch was in November 2023. It was another failure.
The Super Heavy booster has just experienced a rapid, unscheduled disassembly.
But in 2024, during Starship's 5th flight, the reusable booster separated and returned to the launch tower, which was a major accomplishment for SpaceX. However, not a single one of the launches has successfully gotten cargo into orbit. Musk continued to publicly beef with the FAA, and in September 2024, the FAA charged SpaceX $633,000 for safety violations at its Cape Canaveral station. Musk threatened to sue in return, but never did. As the 2024 election approached, he became increasingly vocal that a Trump victory would free SpaceX from unnecessary regulations.
I feel more optimistic about it under with the Trump White House. The biggest impediment to progress that we're experiencing is overregulation. The bureaucracy in the U.S. has been growing every year.
And after Trump took office, the head of the FAA, Michael Whitaker, stepped down after serving only 15 months of his 5-year tenure. Musk had told him to resign on Twitter just a few months before. We went to Texas in January 2025, just as SpaceX was gearing up for their 7th launch of the Starship. Before every launch, people come from all over the country to tailgate, talk rockets, and perform light shows with their Cybertrucks.
The idea of, colonizing the moon and going to Mars is also just really inspiring.
And it's inevitable. I think the Earth is not infinite in its resources, so we gotta start looking elsewhere.
That same week, the FAA was hosting a public forum to talk about SpaceX increasing the number of launches a year from 5 to 25. Both Madronos and Becca Hinosa were there.
An EA is a concise document used to describe the anticipated environmental impacts.
Residents were able to talk to SpaceX representatives and make comments to a court reporter. They asked about damages to their foundations and windows. They wanted to know how 25 launches a year would impact the fisheries and the wildlife.
The information that they're giving us is based on the 5.
Yeah.
Not on the
2022.
But that's also assuming that the climate is going to stay the same.
The window.
It takes about 30 seconds. It can be shaken here, but it's not expected to cause any serious damage to the houses.
25 makes me laugh, I mean, they had a hard time just with 5 or 6 and keeping all the debris that fall in the Gulf or fall in the bay or fall wherever it falls.
The FAA told us there wasn't a significant impact. We know that's not true. And what it looks like is the FAA once again just making steps to give SpaceX whatever license they want.
The FAA still hasn't announced whether or not SpaceX will be allowed to launch 25 times a year. The 7th launch was late, a week late. So the beach was closed on Friday, and then Saturday, Wednesday, and Thursday, when the rocket finally launched. It ended with an explosion over Turks and Caicos.
The vehicle just exploded. The stunning aftermath could be seen by passengers on a plane. The same flight to Miami was rerouted to avoid the debris. Other flights were also diverted.
The FAA ground SpaceX again. In December 2024, SpaceX made another surprise announcement. They would apply to incorporate the town of Starbase. For Starbase to become a town, they'll need 201 residents and a majority vote. Luckily for the future town of Starbase, the vast majority of residents in Boca Chica Village are now SpaceX employees that rent from their boss. As SpaceX was developing the Starship, they were also buying up houses in a tiny unincorporated resort town just a few miles from Boca Chica Beach. Boca Chica Village had just 38 houses, mostly occupied by part-time residents that winter in Texas. In 2019, SpaceX offered to buy out all of the residents, saying that with new FAA safety regulations, it wasn't safe for people to stay in the village.
This letter that SpaceX sent out is more of a bully attack, a hostile takeover.
But at the same time, SpaceX was moving their employees into town and expanding. Soon there were Airstream trailers lining the block, and a new name for the street that was once called Weem Street. Meme Street. If incorporated, Starbase could fund its own utilities, infrastructure, or security forces, and it could create its own local ordinances. It would no longer be a part of Brownsville.
It's one thing to come and try to work hand in hand with the community that's here, but it's another thing to absolutely, and I see this, the actual takeover of everything.
SpaceX has already proven to be a bad neighbor, and that's why most of us don't want it anymore.
You're gonna see Elon Musk a lot in the news these days for his role in dismantling key parts of our federal government. But the real purpose of Doge isn't efficiency. It's deregulating into town and expanding. Soon there were Airstream trailers lining the block, and a new name for the street that was once called Weem Street. Meme Street. If incorporated, Starbase could fund its own utilities, infrastructure, or security forces, and it could create its own local ordinances. It would no longer be a part of Brownsville.
It's one thing to come and try to work hand in hand with the community that's here, but it's another thing to absolutely, and I see this, the actual takeover of everything.
SpaceX has already proven to be a bad neighbor, and that's why most of us don't want it anymore.
You're gonna see Elon Musk a lot in the news these days for his role in dismantling key parts of our federal government. But the real purpose of Doge isn't efficiency, it's deregulation. Musk has shown he wants no oversight on local ordinances. It would no longer be a part of Brownsville.
It's one thing to come and try to work hand in hand with the community that's here, but it's another thing to absolutely, and I see this, the actual takeover of everything.
SpaceX is already proven to be a bad neighbor, and that's why most of us don't want it anymore.
You're gonna see Elon Musk a lot in the news these days for his role in dismantling key parts of our federal government. But the real purpose of Doge isn't efficiency forces, and it could create its own local ordinances. It would no longer be a part of Brownsville.
It's one thing to come and try to work hand in hand with the community that's here, but it's another thing to absolutely, and I see this, the actual takeover of everything.
SpaceX is already proven to be a bad neighbor, and that's why most of us don't want it anymore.
You're gonna see Elon Musk a lot in the news these days for his role in dismantling key parts of our federal government. But the real purpose of Doge isn't efficiency, it's deregulation. Musk has shown he wants no oversight for himself or other billionaires like him. The story of Boca Chica is crucial to understanding Musk's playbook for seizing public resources and justifying his campaign as part of a grand vision for humanity. Whether that's landing on Mars or creating a more efficient government. A revolution for the people, as he's called it.
I wonder, like, in 10 years, when he's done with whatever he's gonna be doing, what's gonna happen to this area? Who's gonna pick up all this mess? Who's gonna clean it up?
Thanks for watching The Classroom for more perfect union. We cover the small and large ways that the 1% are reshaping our world. Boca Chica is an extreme example, but you might also live in a community like that. If so, comment below.
There's one simple salt trick that anyone can use to fight off nerve pain almost overnight. Did you know that nerve
is hidden in plain sight, invisible to the naked eye?
What is happening here will swallow our world if we don't stop it right here, right now.
Looking back, there was an early clue that the world's richest man was up to something here.
It's just like, why is Elon Musk coming to Memphis?
The people of Memphis soon found out.
Now Elon Musk is coming to Memphis to build the world's largest supercomputer.
A year later,
we hit the quick win.
people here want answers.
But they have the power to protect our laws. And not once have they went to XAI to see that they had 35 gas turbines operating and polluting our air.
We went to Memphis and found an environmental crime scene. Musk's data center burning enough methane to power a small city with no permits and no pollution controls.
I have not seen anything like this. We believe they've already violated the Clean Air Act.
As Musk helps dismantle the very federal agency that's supposed to protect us against pollution like this.
There is no way to miss how this is a coordinated strategy.
What does Memphis reveal about the future Elon Musk wants for us all?
So the mission of XAI and Grok is to understand the universe.
In 2023, Musk founded XAI to produce and sell artificial intelligence.
We want to understand the nature of the universe so we can figure out where are the aliens, what's the meaning of life, how does the universe end.
Its main product is Grok, an AI chatbot that he's incorporated into Twitter, or X. Musk was entering the race to dominate the AI market, but he was arriving late, years after competitors like OpenAI and Google had begun training their AI systems. So in Musk's mind, he had to move fast.
We went to the data center providers and said how long would it take to have 100,000 GPUs operating coherently in a single location, and we got time frames from 18 to 24 months. So like, well, 18, 24 months, that means losing is certainty, so the only option was to do it ourselves. Been waiting for this moment. I am pleased to announce that XAI's Gigafactory of Compute, the world's largest supercomputer, is to be located in Memphis, Tennessee.
Musk dubbed the project Colossus after a movie about a supercomputer that becomes sentient and assumes total control of the world. And so, my fellow human beings, we all directly and indirectly live in the shade, but not the shadow of Colossus.
When you think about the computational power that it will take to put humans on the surface of Mars, that's going to come from the Gigafactory of Compute that calls Memphis home. We were told that by the company. And so it required speed and power.
It's announced as a done deal. Keyshawn Pearson grew up in South Memphis, a billionaire, and his organization is coming to our city, and we're just finding out after the land has been purchased, after the project has been approved by certain officials, right, who did know.
This is huge. This puts the word out there that Memphis understands operating at the speed of business.
And as a community, we're trying to reach out to people and understand what is XAI. He built it without us even knowing that it was being built.
We had to watch this over X or Twitter, Brent Mayo, Elon Musk would tweet often about where they were in the progress, how fast things were moving.
To train an AI system, a data center requires an enormous amount of electricity. The question was, where would the power come from?
Most companies, when they come to the city of Memphis, they plug into our power grid. That's what you'd think would happen. Why would this be any different? Unfortunately, we learned, because it is a billionaire's corporation, it would be a lot different.
XAI made a deal with the local electric company for 150 megawatts of power and agreed to build a new substation to help meet that demand. But Musk's ambitious plans suggested he would need much more power than that, and fast. Soon, people started to notice some unusual structures outside the facility.
I drove out there, and the first thing I did was hear the turbines. You can smell it as well. Such a disturbingly unique smell.
From the road, Keyshawn and others could see a row of machines that are typically only used for remote or emergency operations. Mobile gas turbines.
I have never seen portable turbines used like this.
Patrick Anderson works on air quality cases for the Southern Environmental Law Center.
We know that these kinds of generators require air permits. And so, right off the bat, we started filing records requests with the local Shelby County Health Department. Do you have an air permit application from XAI?
And they came back and basically said, no, we have nothing to hand over. We also filed records requests with EPA to see what they had. They also did not have details on what is on the ground out there. Nobody from the regulatory side, the health department, the city, EPA, has told the public or us really one iota of what's actually operating out there. To figure that out, Patrick and his team hired a photographer to capture the data center from above. The images revealed far more turbines than anyone knew about. 35. I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely stunned. How do we not know about this?
According to XAI leadership, the turbines are not being used and are not connected.
Under pressure, XAI claimed it was using less than half of those turbines.
I've talked to the XAI leadership team. There are 35, but there are only 15 that are on. The other ones are stored on the site.
Well, first, capture the data center from above. The images revealed far more turbines than anyone knew about. 35.
I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely stunned. How do we not know about this?
According to XAI leadership, the turbines are not being used and are not connected.
Under pressure, XAI claimed it was using less than half of those turbines.
I've talked to the XAI leadership team. There are 35, but there are only 15 that are on. The other ones are stored on the site.
Well, first off, these are expensive. There's a turbine shortage nationally. You don't obtain these turbines and put them on site if you're not intending to operate them.
So Patrick and his team sent the photographer back out with a high-end thermal camera.
What we saw is 33 of the 35 were very clearly operating.
The turbines were capable of generating about 420 megawatts of electricity, enough to power around 300,000 homes.
They've built a power plant out there. And they've done it overnight, no air pollution controls, quick and dirty, no permit.
I mean, what you've done with the cluster in Memphis is incredible. Just in a handful of weeks.
Any given thing can be sped up.
Yeah.
Like whatever the speed is being done, it can be done faster.
This is the largest AI cluster in the world. This place is absolutely amazing.
That is like superhuman. I mean, Elon is singular. Building a massive factory in the short time that was done, there's only one person in the world who could do that.
And this entire supercomputer is built to power rocks.
We were given a tour at XAI, looking at the facility. Very impressive, very exciting for Memphis. Their commitment to the community is remarkable.
It's unique in my experience.
Joseph Goffman has worked on air pollution issues for decades. Until January, he ran the EPA office that regulates air quality.
Most companies that I've dealt with go to great lengths and spend a lot of money to make sure that the day they turn on their operations, they're also turning on their pollution control equipment. That's a given. For a company to do this, it's treating the people who live there as if they don't count.
I like to open my windows early in the morning to breathe the fresh air, God's given air, not the air that man want to give us, but God.
Easter Knox lives just over a mile from XAI.
I really wasn't getting the fresh air. I was getting that pollution that was mixed in with everything.
You know how you light your stove and that gas seeps with the little ticking noise? That's what it smells like.
Alexis Humphreys grew up here, one street away from Easter.
When I smelled it the first time, I was asleep. And it woke me up because I thought gas was seeping in the house, but come to find out, we come outside and all the neighbors was outside trying to figure out what's going on.
He was an ordinary dad, full of joy, full of jokes.
Last year, Alexis lost her grandfather, who struggled with a respiratory illness called chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, or COPD.
COPD is a breathing condition, but you don't get it unless you smoke cigarettes. And my granddad didn't smoke cigarettes, but every 3 weeks or so, my granddad was going to the hospital. He would have to get breathing treatments. I have asthma, bronchitis. My mom have just bronchitis, and now my granny has it.
You can't hardly breathe. It's just like your whole world is collapsing down on you. And it's frightening.
Easter and her husband have also developed COPD. What does it feel like?
Feel like you're fixing to die.
The area around XAI leads the state in emergency department visits for asthma. Memphis has one of the highest rates of toxic air releases of any American city, and many of its most polluting facilities are in this neighborhood.
Elon, what he did with Memphis is objectively somewhat dirty, but he's also doing it in an area where there's like a bigger natural gas plant right next door and like a wastewater treatment and a garbage dump nearby, right? And he's obviously made the world a lot more clean than that one data center.
In just 1 year, XAI has blown past existing polluters.
They're emitting somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 tons of NOx. I'm an air pollution guy, so I deal in those numbers all the time, and that's larger than anything else in Memphis.
Gas turbines like these release 3 main types of deadly pollution: nitrogen oxides, formaldehyde, and fine particulate matter. Nitrogen oxides combine with other pollutants to form ground-level ozone, which causes and worsens asthma and COPD. Formaldehyde causes cancer. And particulate matter, airborne soot, can pass through your lungs and into your bloodstream, causing heart disease.
We've shown up today because we've been to too many firms. We've shown up today because we've cried too many tears. We've shown up here today because we're tired. And we have an expectation of the people that we elect and put into place. We expect them to do what is in our best interest. Not Elon Musk. And what we're saying is that starts now.
In April, hundreds of people came to a high school in South Memphis to talk about XAI.
Welcome to the new generation of environmental justice. Stop being a coward and saying no to this permit. Today, get a backbone, because in Memphis we don't bluff. Period.
In January, the company belatedly applied for a permit to operate 15 of its turbines for 5 years.
That's the first time that XAI has publicly addressed the community in any way.
I understand people did not want to hear this statement, but again, XAI is committed to meeting the highest standard for emissions. XAI is going above and beyond the required emission control. And to that,
he immediately left after reading his script. It's extremely disrespectful.
It's time to start telling the truth. The truth is that XAI, who just ran up out of here, they have no controls that prevent air pollution or decrease air pollution in their factories. None. That's the truth. Power to the people.
To date, local and state authorities have taken no action against XAI. Running turbines without permits or pollution controls is also a violation of the Clean Air Act, which it's the EPA's job to enforce. But to date, the EPA has done nothing, and Elon Musk is doing what he can to keep it that way. Musk has helped the Trump administration place strict limits on the EPA's budget as part of President Trump's broader project to radically reshape the agency. Trump's EPA has begun what it calls the biggest deregulatory action in U.S. history.
To fulfill President Trump's promise to unleash American energy and give power back to the states.
It eliminated the EPA's office that assists heavily polluted communities like South Memphis, and canceled billions of dollars of funding for addressing pollution.
So you've slashed already $22 billion in grants, but you used Doge, if I'm not mistaken, to take down your head count?
It's been great. The people working on the Doge mission are EPA employees. What they provide to me are recommendations. I have found that working with Elon and Doge has been fantastic, a big help to our efforts.
In March, the EPA announced plans to roll back over 30 air and water quality standards, including protections against fine particulate matter. The new head of the agency describes promoting the AI industry as a core part of the EPA's mission.
It's about unleashing energy dominance, making America the AI capital of the world. And the EPA can't be restrictive of that. We can't be suffocating it.
Making America the world's AI capital means prioritizing a massive expansion of data centers. And hundreds of them are now under construction.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you.
With Trump's EPA backing that effort, there may be little recourse for the communities downwind.
XAI comes from a culture of Silicon Valley. That culture is go fast and break stuff. Break things.
A week after this hearing, XAI announced it would reduce the number of turbines it's running at Colossus over the next 2 months. But it's also dramatically expanding.
I'm happy to announce that XAI is increasing their footprint.
It's building a second larger data center.
Oh yeah, we've already started work on the next cluster. Yeah, about 5 times the power.
Where its construction permit application indicates it's considering using between 40 and 90 gas turbines and enough electricity to power 40% of Memphis.
So we're not like stopping here.
In February, during an XAI product launch, Elon Musk gave the closest thing to a public explanation for what he's done in Memphis.
Well, we needed a building, so we found an Electrolux factory in Memphis. That's why it's in Memphis, home of Elvis. And also, I think it was the capital of ancient Egypt. Then we needed power, at least 120 megawatts at first, but the building only had 15 megawatts. So we initially leased a whole bunch of generators. So we have generators on one side of the building, trailer after trailer of generators, until we get the utility power to come in. You know, it's like interesting. It's not like, oh, we just magically made it happen. You have to break down the problem, just like Grok does for reasoning.
XAI did not respond to questions for this report.
What's happening in Memphis, that is Elon's vision.
Mr. President, all systems are activated.
Congratulations, Dr. Corbin. It's a marvelous achievement.
Thank you, sir.
A technocracy to be able to do whatever he wants, whatever he chooses, to experiment, to kill, to destroy the environment at the behest of his machines. What that will amount to is a plantation economy for the rest of the world. A desolate wasteland of data centers is to follow.
Thanks so much for watching our video. If you'd like to see more stories like this, be sure to like and subscribe to our channel to get more Perfect Union in your feed. And if you have ideas for other stories we should investigate, just drop them in the comments below.